you will die. The devil knew that Adam and Eve didn't have an understanding of death. Man didn't know what death was. As long as man existed, he had only seen the creation of God. He had never seen anything die. And so when the devil came and said, well, you're not going to die, but you're just going to be like him, knowing the difference between good and evil. All we had to do was listen to God. And it's that innocence. A child doesn't know anything about death. And we understand. If you were to roll a person in front of this altar and you bring a child in front of a coffin, they don't understand it. That innocence, they don't understand what death is. To them, when they see a person there, they'll say, well, look, he's just sleeping. The devil used that innocence to get in and trick man. And you have to be careful sometimes because he'll use that innocence against you. And you ever notice how he works it out? Because you are innocent in the things that you do, he'll turn it and use it against you. Now, we know where we fall short, but how do we overcome these shortcomings? There's only one way, and that's through recognition. And Pastor, that's why I say God was working with this thing. He got us on one accord because the first way he shows us about recognition and restoration and what we need to do to overcome these shortcomings. God said in 2 Chronicles 7:14, he said, if my people who are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. Seek my face. Call upon my name. Recognize me as the source of your restoration. The source of everything that you need and require, and I will restore everything to you. But look at how God worked it to bring it to our level and to how it pertains to us. We know it because in Romans 10:9-10 it says that if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus and shalt believe in thy heart that God has raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. For with the heart man believeth unto righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made to salvation. When we recognize that Jesus Christ is the source of our restoration, we are restored back to God. What did Jesus say? He said, there's no way unto the Father except through and by me. You can't be restored to your relationship with God if you don't establish recognition of me. Now, we know that our recognition of Jesus leads to our restoration with God. But is there any example available that helps a person to get their innocence and their intimacy and their inheritance back? And that's what we're all trying to do. How do I get back my innocence? How do I get back my inheritance? How do I get back that intimacy that I had with God? Well, God gave us an example in the form of King David. You know the story of David, the young lad who was anointed by Samuel and went to King Saul and played music for him to calm his nerves. And when Saul decided that he couldn't take on Goliath, but even though he was a king, he basically said, well, I need somebody to take on the giant because you see, I'm King Saul. Yeah. I can't afford to go and fight this man because I'm your king. So who in my kingdom will take on the giant? If you take on the giant, I'll give you all of the accolades, all of the recognition that I, King Saul, can give you. Went out amongst the brethren, and looked at David's brothers, and here comes little David. Saul says, well, son, you're not the right candidate for this. But David said, you don't understand, Saul. I have somebody. I recognize that God is able to do all things. And as long as I stand and worship him, I can do all things through him. Saul said, well, wait a minute, I'll tell you what. Since you bent on going and taking on this giant, I tell you what, here, put on my shield. Take my sword. Put on all the armor that I have and go ahead and take on that giant. But David said, no. God has already given me everything that I need. You see, before I came here, I went down to the brook, and he told me to pick out 5 stones, but even though I was only going to need 1, he said pick up 5 because he wanted to demonstrate the grace of God being at work. This David, God made him a conqueror of all nations. And he became ruler of all the nations, and all of a sudden, here come that devil. Everything David needed, everything he could want, he had. And for some reason, David wasn't on the battlefield with his men. And I look at it and you notice it had to be the devil, because look what it says. It said he went out to his balcony, and the balcony is like a pinnacle. And you remember who the devil took to a pinnacle? And told him, said, look at all the things that I can give to you. If you just bow down and worship me, I'll give you everything. So no doubt, David went on the balcony and looked out, and the devil said, look at that woman. You can have her, even though you have everything you need, but you don't have her, and you can have her because you King David. And David fell for what Satan told him, and you know the story. Bathsheba conceived a child, and David tried to cover up his mess and wound up putting a hit out on her husband and did everything he could. And when he died, he waited for her to mourn, and then he married her and said, well, everything is taken care of. But then the prophet Nathan came into him and said, King David, I got to tell you something. There's a man who went out and killed another man's wife, and he did it to cover up what he thought he was getting away with. And David said, who is this man? This man should be killed. This man is not done right. Nathan says, well, David, it's you. And all of a sudden now, David is thinking now. Everything that God had given him, he gave it up. He had inherited a kingdom of all the things he needed. He had everybody that he wanted. He had all the luxuries that he can want. But now he had given it up. But there's one thing about David. Regardless of what the thing they may have said, people will say, well, look at what David did. David did wrong. David did wrong, but when he did the wrong, look at what he understood. He realized that he had to recognize. So when we want to have an understanding of what do we need to do to show God that we recognize who he is. Psalm 51 shows us how David went back to God, and no doubt when he went back to him, he was saying, Lord, I need my innocence back. Lord, I need my intimacy back. Lord, I need that inheritance back. And so David said, well, Lord, let me show you something. Let me show you my recognition. Look what he said. He said, I acknowledge that word is again. I recognize my transgressions. My sins are always before me. Against you only have I sinned. And done this evil in your sight, that you may be found just when you speak and blameless when you judge. He said, Lord, I recognize you, God. I thought I was playing God, but I found out there ain't but one God. That's you. After David was talking about his recognition, then he said, but Lord, I want to seek my restoration. I need that restoration from you because I know without that I cannot live and survive. And look at what he said when he was praying to God. He said, blot out my transgressions. Wash me thoroughly from my iniquity. Cleanse me from my sin. Purge me with hyssop and I shall be clean.